Well, we've been going through our sermon series of the Power of Promise, and this is May the 22nd, 2011, and
Sorry.
that's all right.
I was trying to make it go off.
That's all right. We'll go ahead and make it go off. So we're in the Power of Promise series, and let's see. Before we begin today, I wanted to welcome everyone here. This is the first day after Judgment Day, and I made sure before Judgment Day really got kicked off that I wanted to make sure to have something posted out there on the internet to let everyone know that we would be here today. And so I'm very pleased to see those of you who've made it, that you're here. I think everyone's aware yesterday was Judgment Day, and so I'm very glad everyone was able to make it. I went back to the website yesterday after 6 o'clock and was wondering, if the counter would keep, counting down, maybe go negative numbers or something like that. I was a little curious, and unfortunately it seemed like they were having some technical difficulties. I thought for a minute this morning, I checked it again, and I thought, well, maybe they're back. But for a moment it seemed like it came up, and then it was back to this unfortunate screen. But our website is still up and functioning, and we're now posting some videos on YouTube. And like I said, I wanted to make sure to put something out there so everyone would know that we're still here, we were still having church today. And so you can now find us on YouTube. So if you download the PowerPoint slides, you can actually click on the photo there, and it'll take you to the video that I posted. Again, we're starting, we were in the middle of this Power of Promise sermon series, and today we're starting a new lesson called Promise Precedes Consequence. Promise precedes consequence. And our lesson is going to be on Noah. And when you think about Noah and things that come to mind, you probably think about a great flood, and you probably think about an ark full of animals. And Noah was the 10th generation after Adam. And that's found in 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, who was in our lesson last week, Methuselah, Lamech, and then Noah and his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So Adam began the lineage, and that 10 generations later we are at Noah. So Noah was a man who walked with God. We can find that in Genesis chapter 6, verses 8 through 9. I'll read it from the NIV. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And this is the account of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. What else can we say about Noah? Well, he was a husband and a father. There's a verse for that in Genesis, again, chapter 6, verse 18. But I will establish my covenant with you and your sons, and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. Noah was a man, very average in terms of he has a small family. But Noah lived in a very special time, and let's look at that for a minute. What was Noah's world like? Well, it was a world of violence. We saw in the second sermon in this series on Cain and Abel that in this world, even in just the very second generation of human beings, there was murder starting out. We learned last time the prophet Enoch was given a mission to preach that judgment was coming on the world, and that's because evil was increasing in the world in Enoch's time. And what we find today in the story of Noah is that the hearts of men everywhere became so corrupt that God had actually regretted that he had made man. That's found in Genesis 6. I'll start in verse 6 and selected passages. Actually, I'll start in verse 11. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the race of human beings I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. It's really sad how low that the world that Noah lived in had become, because there was such violence, there was such evil in the world, that it actually had tugged God's heart to the point that this is not the outcome that he wanted, and he actually regretted that he had made man in the first place. So the Noah's flood story, in a nutshell, has basically this kind of framework to it. God's judgment was imminent. Something had to be done. The evil was just too great in the world. He had to do something about it. But he didn't want to destroy absolutely everyone. He created man to have a relationship with him. He created man for him to be their God and for them to be his people. He wanted to have that relationship. And so even though being a God of justice, he was obligated to judge sin, he didn't want to destroy everyone. And Noah was a man who walked with God. So God devised a plan of escape. And he communicated his plan to man in the form of a promise. Our sermon series is The Power of Promise. And what we're finding is when God interacts with us, and when God interacts with the people that are described in the Bible, he acts in terms of a promise. He makes a promise and communicates that promise to his followers. And when God's judgment came, those who believed the promise survived, and those who did not believe the promise were the ones who were destroyed. And this is something we see again and again. So this is Noah's flood in a nutshell. All right, let's look at the first part of that. We're going to break this down a little bit. So God's judgment was imminent. This is Genesis chapter 6, starting with verse 13. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. I'm going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. So basically, God was obligated to judge sin. He regretted his heart that he'd made man. He decided he was going to destroy the earth. And basically, this is the type of judgment that he had decided for it, is he was going to bring a great flood. But again, he devised a plan of escape for Noah. And the plan was that Noah was supposed to build a ship, a great ship called the ark. And the ark would be stocked with food, and Noah and his family would be aboard the ark. And also, God wanted to preserve animals. And so, a mating pair of each kind of animal was going to go aboard the ark with Noah to be saved from the flood. So they and Noah's family would ride on the waves and be carried above the flood. As the flood was destroying everything else, they would be saved. This was God's plan. And just a few details of that, very selected verses. God said, make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch in and out. And this is how you're to build it. The ark is to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Make a roof, finish the ark to within 18 inches of the top, so a little breathing space up there. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. 2 of every kind of bird, 2 of every kind of animal, 2 of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come with you and be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away for food for you and for them. And Noah did everything that God commanded him. So I found this diagram of a boat, just to give it some scale. There's on the right there is two of the luxury liners of the history. There's the QE2 and the Titanic over to the right. And you can see on the right side there, Noah's Ark in the small diagram on the right side. Noah's Ark is the ship that's at the top. And then you have the Titanic and the QE below it. And so you can see, just spot visualizing, it was about half the length of the Titanic. It's a huge, huge ship. I have a few thoughts about the Noah's Ark. Just things that came to mind. I thought I'd share them. When you visualize it, I actually did a little calculation in terms of the size, and the average size of a Walmart is about 100,000 square feet. So the big super Walmarts are like 186,000. The smaller ones are less than 100,000, but on average about 100,000 square feet. And that's about how much room that the Ark had in it. It had, I think it was 105,000 square feet. So, but if you can visualize standing in a Walmart with a ceiling 15 feet tall, that's how much floor space that we're talking about for the Ark, just to give you kind of a visual to think about. But divide that space in half and stack it, because there were 3 decks. There was an upper, middle, and a lower deck. So a third of a Walmart stacked on top of a third of a Walmart, stacked on top of a third of a Walmart. Pretty big boat. Now, of course, you read a lot of resources, and people are, theologians and everything, trying to figure out, how did they build such a big boat? It must have taken them 70 years to build this boat, just Noah and his 3 sons. Well, my thought on that is, they were supposed to not just build this boat, which would have been an enormous expense in terms of material and time and so on, but they would have had to stock it with lots of food. So it's not stated in the story, but Noah was probably a very, very wealthy man in his time. In his time, there's no telling what resources and houses and so on that he must have had, but like the people who perhaps were preparing for Judgment Day yesterday, he might have been throwing all of his resources into building this boat. So there's nothing in the story that says that he didn't hire, 500 able-bodied men to come and help him build this ship. I mean, people have this in their minds that it's, Noah and his 3 sons out there swinging an axe and trying to fell trees and cut them and all that, but he may have literally had an army working on this boat. There's nothing that says that he couldn't have done this. So just a few thoughts I thought I'd share about the Ark. Okay, so back to our list in the nutshell of this story. Let's talk about for a minute how God communicated his plan. It's in Genesis chapter 6, starting with verse 13. Actually, verse 18, sorry. It says, I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the Ark, you and your sons and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the Ark 2 of every living creature, male and female, to keep them alive with you. Now, buried in these 2 verses is the essence of that promise.